do Zoom. So thank you for being here on this Saturday. It's great to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about turning your passion into profits. My name is Debbie Langley, and I am super excited to have you here and to be able to share this topic, because this has been a guiding principle in my life as I've created my own businesses. With doing my own businesses, it allowed me to choose something I really enjoyed, and it allowed me to be successful. Sometimes you're successful in creating a business and sometimes you're not. And it has to do with the passion that you feel. So as we're talking today, and I'm going to take just a minute because my screens are wrong. Sorry.
I don't think it'd be a normal Zoom meeting if we didn't have some.
Yeah, that is true. But for recording it, I want to make sure that it goes ahead and does it right. Okay, there we go. I found the right buttons. So I'm going to start over a little bit, because we are going to put this out on YouTube eventually. But you're going to have, Jolene, you're going to have the first opportunity to keep this in your own private files if you want. As we, it's one to thank you again for being here and giving me this precious amount of time, because I know that as moms, you have the opportunity to do many things, and you have children, and some have husbands, and some have jobs, and all kinds of things that making demands on your time. And so it means a lot that you take time to be with me today. I have been a mompreneur for more than 40 years. As I started having my kids, the most important thing to me was being there with my kids. And I had the opportunity, because I had a supportive husband at the time, that allowed me to be able to create businesses to bring in income, but that I would be able to allow me to be home and be the major influence in my kids' lives. And that was my driving force. Maybe that's my passion, because I think one of the most important jobs we have on this earth is being a mom. We can change not only societies and our own homes and our own communities, but we have a global influence, because what we teach our children and how we, the values that we give them, they will influence the entire world. And as we have seen our society get to a point where moms are out in the workforce, not necessarily because they want to be, but because they have to be, because things are so expensive. It takes two incomes, or we're single moms, and we have to provide the support for our families. So my mission is to, and this is my passion right now, is to get moms back at home. And whatever way I can, I want to help them build the income they need so that they can be the major influence in their children's lives. So the purpose of the this webinar is to identify, what is a passion, and then look at how we can actually turn it into a business. Because as it says here on this front screen, love what you do and you will never work a day in your life. And that is so true. And as we go through the exercises today, want to have you just open your mind and think of all the possibilities out there. The only limitations we have are the ones that we place on ourselves. And that's a really important thing to remember, because that affects not only just us, but our children too, because sometimes as parents, we inadvertently put limitations on our children, because we see what we perceive as their possibilities, their capabilities, and those come from our own background, not really what affects them. And we have to be aware of our own self-limiting thoughts. It can be really scary to start thinking about the possibilities if you're in a world that has limitations. There is nothing you can't achieve. I know that. I have experienced that. I was a mom with 6 kids, and I started doing real estate investing. I owned properties all over the US. And there was when I took on coaching from real estate mentors and coaches. And in just 2.5 years, I took that business to a 7-figure business. And had I not opened my mind to the possibility of having a 7-figure business, I could not have achieved that. It wasn't something that my husband did. I did all the work in that business, and it was actually very empowering. And that's one of the things that is important about turning a passion into profits, is that you realize how empowering accomplishing your goals or living in your passion and your talents. So let's move on. Let's see. Of course, it's not going to go there. So passion is an emotion to be acted upon. Without action, passion yields no worthwhile results. And when you have passion for something, you love it even when you hate it. This is such a true statement. If you feel emotionally connected to something, unless you do something about it, it's not going to make any difference. And so start thinking about where you have your emotions and what makes you feel alive. That's one of the things that I love about working in a passion, is that it makes me feel alive and excited. And every day I get up and I could do it 24/7 and never get tired of it. And that's part of how you know if you're working in a passion. When you're looking at your passions, this is just a brainstorm, and I'd like you to take time right now to put down on a piece of paper the words passions, talents, and skills, and start thinking about each of those. What is it that makes you feel alive? What makes you excited? And Janine, can you unmute yourself and let's have a conversation?
Yeah, I would love to. I wrote down passions, talents, and skills, like you suggested.
Okay. So what would you say are some of your passions?
Passion is definitely creativity. And why I say that is I've always loved to make things, use my hands and my creativity to just generate things. And I say things because it's been, quilts, jewelry, a painting, a creative solution to something in the garden, whatever. And so I felt as a person, a lot of my passions have centered around creativity. And then my other passion is really, since I was a very small child, thinking about how can I make the world better? Like, what is my part in that? How can I help another human? Or how can I contribute to this community that I live in? And so for me to think about working in my passions, that is a big portion of it.
Cool. That's pretty awesome. So what kind of talents do you have? These are things that will come more naturally or that you have worked at.
One of my largest talents is influence. And
That's important.
it's I guess it's a weird word for me to say out loud, but I just have a lot of people skills. I love people. I love meeting new people. I love networking. I love, just getting to know them. And I've noticed in my professional career that that's a talent that not everyone has. So
Mhm.
I've loved, managing people and thinking about developing them and supporting them through their own journeys. And so I guess when I take strength tests, it's called the influencing sphere. So that's why I use that.
Uh-huh.
It's weird. And then I also have a talent for, I would say, grit or resolve to get through anything, to look at roadblocks as, if I can't go through this, if I can't go around it, then I have to go over it, or I have to pick a new path completely. And so I have the resolve to really to just learn and fail, but never stop the momentum. So I guess some people would also call that problem solving.
Yes, you and I have that in common. It sounds like you can look at a situation and say, okay, there is this challenge, but we have all these options that we can do to solve it. And that you're willing to change course and be flexible, which is important, especially as a business owner.
Yeah, and I think I just have this real stubborn resolve for like just not getting knocked down by things in my life. And it's like
Yeah.
easy. It's so many things that want to knock us down. And I just have this, I don't know, strong resolve not to be knocked down somehow.
And
But
what a lot of people call that is a can-do attitude, that no matter what, you're going to do it.
yeah. And I've also heard people describe it as really proactive.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'll show up to the conversation, I'll address the conflict head to head or the problem or whatever it is, and I'll be proactive in my interaction with it.
And you're not going to let it change you. Because a lot of people, when they get into tough situations, they let it actually change who they are. And they start reacting instead of acting. And you sound like an actor. Like you take charge of the situation.
It's an interesting statement too, because I think, some of those processes do change you, and how it changes you is you learn. And when you learn something, you tend to just get better at whatever that thing was that you had to learn. And so I see your point in like maybe people's personality change or it influences them negatively, but the flip side is a lot of those processes can also change us for the good,
That is true. I would say that the challenges I faced in my life have actually made me a better person and better able to change the world, because I understand someone else's situation. I have more compassion and empathy. And you're right. If you let the situation make you angry, turn bitter, take on other characteristics that aren't uplifting and empowering, those are not good things to do. So I love this conversation. Now, what kind of skills do you have, Jolene?
When I think about skills, I think about 70 things, and I think that's pretty normal for people. It's like, well, I can do a lot of a lot of things. I have a lot of skills. So when I looked at this on your slide, I'm like, well, what are my top 3 skills? Like if I had to look at it like that. And I would say the first one is like creative design. And this is a very versatile skill I have. I really love, for example, to design processes, business processes. So I like process improvement. Like I love to look at, how is a process working and how can it be better? How can we design it differently? Then I obviously also like to design jewelry, and that's what I do in my business. So I think design is one of my skills. And that comes with all the, programs that you use to do that and the philosophies and all of that. The next skill I have is I'm really good at creating goals and sticking to them. So momentum, again, that idea that I can take action and I can break large things down into small pieces and just, get through them.
That's great.
And then I have a lot of skills that I do with my hands, a lot of maker type skills. Too. So
that's cool. So I have just 3 on each of these lists. I actually would like you to put 5 down, because 5 gives you more to look at, and just put your top 5 things. Because what we're going to do next is look at how we could solve somebody else's problem with that. Let's see. Next slide. So when you have your passions and your talents and your skills, they put you in different spots. So like if just working in your passion on what you like to do, love to do most, and that you could even do 24/7, it leaves you oftentimes happy, but very poor. It allows you to dream, but there isn't any way to monetize that unless you look at it in a different way as to solving a problem. Same thing with talents and skills. What are you good at? What do you know how to do? What kind of schooling have you had or training? And this is where a lot of moms end up, is they end up in a job that they're very highly skilled to do, but they're bringing in the money, but they're totally miserable because they're not really doing what they want to do. And again, if you put it in with your passion, it can make you happy, happy, but very poor. And when we look at how we can monetize those passions, skills, and talents, we're looking at what kind of problems can we solve. And when you monetize it, we're going to also look at what's going to pay well. It may not be your top passion. It may not be your best talent, but if you can monetize it and work at it and grow it into a business that can support you, it will allow you to then switch into your higher passions and talents. Because if you focus just on the money, or you can be rich but miserable, you can be left dreaming. And what we want to do is we want to get in the center here with where we win, and that's where we take action. We combine all 3 thoughts and become winners. So let's go back.
I love that slide, by the way, because as a creative person, it's like, well, I could do and make 78 things. or 150 things. So what is the thing, what is the thing that's in that win? That's such a interesting question for someone like me with a lot of creativity. And it always has been my whole life on how do we get to that?
Okay, so
That's why I am here.
well, I'm glad you're here because that's what we're going to talk about next. We go back to this slide. So let's, I don't know that it would, yeah, it's not going to let me. I was going to say I was going to write it out, but looking at passions, is there a way to make nice money at art?
Yes.
Okay. So
yep.
What does it take to make money at art?
From what I've seen, it really takes creating, like reaching out to your dream clientele and then connecting with them. And I think that's the way that artists make money. Because you found your customer and you have a great relationship with them and they appreciate your art, and that's how it's, depending on how large that base is.
You've got to develop your talents in art. Because if your art, whether it is jewelry or painting or sculpting, whatever it might be, if your art does not resonate with someone else, then you're not able to monetize it. So it takes not only a passion, it takes some talent and skills. So there's some investment of time and maybe money into there to develop that. When you do that, then like you said, you find your clientele that you resonate with and you attract them. Then, so that's one way to do it. If piano was your passion, what are some of the ways that you could develop piano to make money?
You could teach people piano.
You could teach piano.
You could commercialize it, like you could do piano jingles for local companies as a way to use your piano skills.
Right. You could do concerts.
You could do performing arts. Yep.
Performing arts. This is something that a lot of people don't know, is that there are churches and even schools that pay people to play the piano for them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but you need to think about what kind of problem can I solve with art. What is the problem that you're solving?
I think humans love to express themselves, and creativity is a very emotional thing. And so I think what we like about art is it makes us, it brings out emotions. It makes us feel beautiful. It makes us feel stress-free. It reminds us of a place we've been. It just evokes emotion. And I think that's why humans have liked it so much.
Yes, that is so true. And it in a home, you use art to fill blank spaces. You use art to influence your children. I remember this one picture that hung over our piano when I was growing up. And it was like in the maybe Victorian or pre-Victorian times. And there were 3 women there. One was at a harpsichord, and one had a violin that she was playing, and the other one had a cello. And the whole time I was growing up, I saw that picture and I loved it. And when I had the opportunity to choose an instrument to play, I chose the cello because of that picture. And yeah, I mean, I could think of nothing better. And that was an example to me of how I could use art and things in my home to influence my kids. I have sisters that chose violins, and they had They had influence from the violin player there. All of us took piano, but art can be an influencer. So we're looking at different ways that we can solve problems. Piano, teaching talents, again, enriching other people's experience, because piano is another influencer. Let's look at talents. So painting. I had a friend that her business was painting. She would go into a person's home and paint their rooms. And she came up with that idea because she listened to so many people that hated to paint, but they wanted to change the color of their walls. So she solved a problem with that, and she made a very successful business. Jolene, you said you have problem-solving talents. How could you solve somebody else's problem with that skill or talent?
I think consulting, like listening to someone's problem and then generating some ideas on how we could solve it. So, and then also just using some classic, process improvement techniques to get at what the real problem is and then how we can kind of solve it. So I think from maybe a consultant.
Right. You could be a consultant. I remember earlier in our conversation that you said that you liked business processes and developing business processes. Could you turn that into a business?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think even small businesses, it's like they don't, when you're just like a mompreneur, for example, you're your only person, right?
Right.
Maybe you have a coach, or maybe you have a partner, or maybe you don't. And so there's a lot of things that you might not have the skill set for, and that's okay. And so you might not know how to create a process for your business that can scale with it, so you might be you might be making $1,000 a month. That's great, but what happens when you make $50,000 a month? It's not the same process, right?
That is so true.
So I think there's a lot of space in there that my talents could help with. It could solve a problem just by assisting with that.
Okay, so you have a jewelry business that you want to grow. Is that going to bring you in the income right away that you need to be able to step away from your corporate job?
I don't think so. I hope so. It's in my goals. But one of the things I'm unsure about is how long that should take, and how to really tell if I'm in a rational vision. Does that make sense? And have I really created something that could make money, or have I not? And when would I know? And
okay,
so I think the answer is I don't know.
well,
I'm working towards a goal, but I don't know if
yeah,
I will get there.
sometimes you have to have interim plans to help you.
Yeah.
And so maybe you could consider a consulting firm, and start consulting with other businesses, small businesses, and even moderate-sized businesses with your talents. So Laura, can you unmute?
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us, Laura.
Finally got on. Yay.
Well, it's good to have you here. So we're talking about different ways to monetize our talents and skills and passions. Do you have these are just some things that I listed, but do you have some ideas for yourself that you're wanting to look at as to being able to monetize it and turn it into a business?
Not at this time, but it's good to listen in.
Okay. Well, I wanted to include you in the conversation if you wanted to be. So,
Awesome. Thank
all
you.
right. Okay. I'll let you go ahead and mute again. So,
How do I do that? I don't
oh,
know.
I can mute you. But
Okay, great.
if you ever want to make a comment, please unmute yourself and join the conversation. Okay?
Okay, beautiful.
Thank you. So, and same thing with skills. You mentioned that you had some skills earlier, Jolene, that you might be able to use. And that might be an interim business. It might be the road to multiple streams of income. Because like you could create an agency. And that's one of the things that happens in today's world is that women are starting businesses and they find a market. Like there's a huge market for doing digital marketing. So if you have somebody that you know that does graphic design or has gone to school and learned all the tricks and tips for doing digital marketing, they're combining their activities and marketing them together so that they're creating an agency. Same thing could be with childcare. Maybe you start out with childcare in your home and you've got, depending on what the codes are in your area, you got one baby and 4 or 5 other kids, and you got another friend that does childcare, and you get together and you say, oh, why don't we combine our efforts, because then we could do more and create more childcare and provide a safe atmosphere and attract people that want their kids to be raised with your particular values. Cooking is another thing that it is a skill, because do you know how many men out there don't like to cook and would pay a woman who loves to cook to make freezer meals for them, or even 7 fresh meals a week, and they come and pick them up? There's all kinds of ideas that you can do.
Also, cool service like this that popped up in my area was a woman who did fresh meals like this that she would deliver to your house, and then coworkers would send that for someone who had like a family problem. Someone died.
Oh,
They would hire her to bring fresh meals, and it was that was a great idea.
that is, and they made another idea pop up. That I have a friend that does ironing. I mean, that's kind of a lost skill, but men like to have their shirts ironed and starched, and a lot of cleaners aren't local. If you live in a small town, you may not have a dry cleaner, but you could advertise, and she gets $1.50 a shirt, and she can do 12 shirts in an hour, and she works it around whatever her kids are doing. So you look at what is the price that you can get in your area, and you look at how big a problem is it, because the bigger the problem, the better your business will be. So we talked about what the problem is that you're solving. We want to look at how big the problem is and how many people have this problem. Because if you're in an area and only 1 or 2 people have the problem, is it going to be a very good business? Is it going to make you money?
No.
No, not at all. And is your solution cost effective? So, what we want to do is we want to use the problem to springboard to the solution. And these are just a couple ideas. So with Tide. Dirty socks and Tide go together. You get they solve the problem of the dirty socks. Here was a company that put together gift baskets, because in today's world, do we have tons of time to go out gift shopping? We know what somebody likes, but it would take a long time to put this together. So somebody else created a business on just doing that. And they made it quite, they had like 6 or 7 different baskets that they offered, and you can just call and get that. This is an ad on social media that, because once you have your idea, you got to advertise it. And I really like this ad because it shows what they do, the problem that they are running into, and then they've got this big solution for it. And so this person, they are saving you time by doing a lot of the administrative parts of your business that a lot of people don't really like to do, because you can charge money for things that people don't like to do. Right? Would you agree?
Yeah. And if you could just in your small business pay someone to do some of these things you don't like for, not a lot of money, just think about the things that are your talents. You could be like, if you're talented at sales, you could get 20 hours more a week to do that.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. That's a
Yeah.
great solution if your business can afford it.
Well, I had a similar business back long before the internet. But I was doing these very same things that she's advertising. And I was getting paid $75 an hour. How many hours do I have to pay or work to replace my corporate income of, say, 20, 22, somewhere in that range, if I'm getting $75 an hour? I mean, I just cut my,
Probably less hours than you might.
yeah. I mean, I have to work a third of the hours to bring in the same kind of income. So those are options to think about. So just to recap, because we're getting down to the end of our time here, is that we want to identify your passions, talents, and skills. And then we want to figure out if we can monetize them. And we do that by figuring out what problem we can solve. And you can actually make this, when you wrote those things down, you can write next to them, okay, I can solve this problem, and this problem with this. And once you solve figure out the problem, then you have to figure out who your avatar is. And that can be a tricky thing. In fact, I'm going to do another workshop on figuring out who your avatar is. Because if you're not familiar with that term, an avatar is who is the person you want to sell to. Is it somebody that's going to be just like you because they're going to like what you're doing and the way that you're doing them? Is it going to be somebody that is a person that you know and that person likes what you do, so that's what you're going to model your avatar after? And then you have to decide how big is your audience, and that's going to take some research. Look at is this going to be an online business? Is this something that you can do offline? Like Jolene, you do jewelry. So while it may be easier to do online and try and do it through Etsy or Shopify or Facebook shop, advertise through Facebook, create a website, all those things that you do online. Your best bets may be to take your products and get them into small boutiques, or when I lived in Utah, we had this pharmacy, and it was the best place to go for gifts because they had this eclectic collection of things that made wonderful gifts, you know, unique jewelry. They had I think there were 4 artisans that they carried their materials. Look at gift shops. Any place that you could get your product out and have a steady stream of income. You don't have to go visit them every week, but you could go and look at their, you know, go in, talk to the owners, and once a month, or they could call you and say, hey, we sold out, or we need more. And then you could be responsive there. After you have those ideas down, then you need to create a business plan, because a business plan is your roadmap. It can be very flexible, but it says, okay, this is what I'm starting with, this is where I want to get to, and gives you at least a general map of the direction that you're going, and it gives you milestones as well as your target, your goal. And then you go to market after you do that. So does anybody have any questions? All right. Well, I really appreciate your time today, and thank you so much for being here. And if you have anything else that you would like to discuss, please reach out to me. Here are our Lifestyle Biz Moms Facebook group. It's a no pitch group, so you can join it and know that you're not getting pitched, you're only going to get information. And invite you to follow me on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, you can always call or text me at 208-398-3394. It's been a pleasure, and I just am so excited to get to know each of you. So if you don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and close this webinar.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. It's good to see you, Laura. So I can't hear you. Okay. I'll just have to meet you out front because I can't hear you. So I'll talk to you later.